January 6th is remembered as a day where political violence rattled American democracy, as we saw our nation's leaders, like then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, sheltering in a safe house, making calls, and in a now infamous moment, eating a Slim Jim. But the need for government refuge is nothing new. During the peak of the Cold War, there was a secret bunker for the entire U.S. Congress. Scott MacFarlane traveled to the Mountain State for a rare look inside the well-preserved facility and found something powerful outside as well.
Hidden in the West Virginia mountains on an 11,000-acre estate, the Greenbrier Resort is an imposing white structure. But inside is draped in bright colors and classical pieces, a design originally from the 1940s that's intentionally bold.
There's no beige. There's no beige around here, you know.
Retired Greenbrier historian Dr. Robert Conti says it was an escape for the most powerful.
How many U.S. presidents have been here?
28 is a current count.
As far back as?
Martin Van Buren. James Monroe was here, but he was only Secretary of State at that point.
And for 30 years, the Greenbrier also had a secret. Congress ordered construction of a backup U.S. Capitol that would double as a nuclear fallout shelter below the resort.
We kind of forget how intense the Cold War was.
The United States and the Soviet Union.
And people at the time, particularly military people, weren't thinking if this is going to be used. They were thinking when it's going to be used.
They would convene here.
Right. It wasn't just hunker in the bunker. They were going to continue to function as a legislative branch.
Completed in early 1962, it includes an auditorium as the House chamber and bunk beds for all 535 members of Congress.
The people who operated the bunker had a mantra that they repeated over and over. We will maintain this at a constant state of operational readiness.
At a moment's notice.
At a moment's notice.
With an infirmary, police equipment, and a kitchen and dining room.
These are the original floors.
Yeah, these original floors. And, you know, it was actually designed this way to be sort of annoying and irritating. All these little black and white flooring. They didn't want people to sit around here. They had to do multiple seating. So eat and get out was kind of their philosophy.
Then congressional leaders Lyndon Johnson and Sam Rayburn approved the plan, considering the location strategic.
If war broke out, they assumed that Washington, D.C. would be a primary target. Why didn't they put this at a military facility? It would have been a lot easier. But Sam Rayburn and Lyndon Johnson, they wanted to maintain the independence of the legislative branch. They weren't going to put their facility on a military base that reports to the executive branch.
The construction work was unknown even to the staff of the resort.
How are you going to build a 112,000 square foot underground bunker without people noticing? Well, you build an addition to the Greenbrier on top of it, and you say, oh, we're just adding to the Greenbrier. We're just expanding the Greenbrier. And they were.
It operated until 1992, when it was declassified. But the hotel held prior roles.
The war isn't over yet.
During World War II, the government transformed the Greenbrier into an army hospital, and it also served as an internment camp for diplomats from enemy nations.
For generations, the bunker and the resort above it were this refuge in waiting, a theoretical safe place, until the day it was no longer theoretical.
The death toll from flooding in West Virginia is at least 20.
A 1,000-year flood ripped apart White Sulphur Springs in 2016, submerging the homes of many of the Greenbrier's employees, including the home of Mackenzie Moya, who worked in the Greenbrier as a teenager alongside her mother. Moya was pregnant when she lost her home.
It seems like it just happened yesterday, but then sometimes it still seems unbelievable that it happened. It was just an unimaginable scene to see the town that I had grown up in just an absolute ruin. Buildings were flattened, there were cars everywhere, trees down, houses missing. My dad calling me, I can't see your house anymore. I'm not sure where your mom is. He was on a roof at my neighbor's house.
Your house was lifted off the ground.
It came up off the foundation and floated about a football field away into my neighbor's house behind me.
Moya's mom managed to survive the torrent.
The two men that were with her about 6 hours held her with a rope around her in the tree, and she wasn't physically able to get completely into the tree, so some of her body was still in the flood waters as she was clinging to the tree for her life.
So the creek water comes all the way up to the bridge.
It was remarkable. There was water from the high ground over here as far as you can see.
Architect and local business owner Tom Crabtree recalls the devastation. How many people were lost?
In this community, there were 13 that perished.
The Greenbrier's grounds were wrecked, but its hotel remained intact.
Greenbrier opened their doors to anybody that was displaced by the flood, and it was a remarkable thing.
The rebuilding of White Sulphur Springs continues, but has already made the city stronger.
Initially, people invested in this town by donating funds for volunteers to build homes. All of the construction materials were purchased locally. All of the restaurants were serving food to hundreds of volunteers. That momentum continued, and Main Street, White Sulphur Springs today has no vacant storefronts, has no vacant space.
Encouraging its people to stay.
What kept me here was the opportunity to raise my daughter in the same place that I was raised in and played sports in and loved living. You hear about the beauty in West Virginia of like the landscape, but the sense of community that it brought really shows you the people in this area.
Saving a place that's long been America's safe house. For CBS Saturday Morning, Scott MacFarlane, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia.
Safe house indeed.
Pretty fascinating. I like the bunk beds. You know the arguments that Congress has over who's going to take what off. I can only imagine the discussion over who's taking which bunk bed, who's on top, the bottom.
I didn't even think about that, Jeff. That's an excellent point.
Yeah. Brilliant point. Naturally, you make it.
Imagine the arguments among us if we had to go stay
We'll just
there.
leave it right there.
Yeah.